We're here in Santa Fe, New Mexico with Phil and Eleanor Beauvais. We are on Acequia Madre, that's the name of this street, which is also the name of the acequia that these houses are built along. It is an ancient man-made water system. It is still the system that provides water to all of these homes and a link to history. This is Phil Beauvais, and he is the commissioner of the Acequia Madre here in Santa Fe. Hi, Phil.
Hello. Well, today we're standing by the Acequia Madre, and as you can see, that right now there's no water. We have water only one day a week now for our irrigators. And if you look closely, you'll also know that around the acequias you get wildlife, and you'll see the raccoon tracks that are in the mud.
Oh, yeah.
The Acequia Madre, you can see, is lined with stone and wire and different ways, different parts of the ditch. Since the ditch is a little bit over 400 years old, and this area of Santa Fe is much built up from originally, because originally the acequia was really concerned with larger fields for growing beans and corn and squash and so on that needed irrigation. And now this area that has been used more for agriculture in the past now is all built up in homes. But people still have gardens, they still have fruit trees. This is a big apricot tree behind you here. There's apricot trees here, apple trees. Most of these yards have fruit trees. They still have small gardens and so on that we use the water from the acequia to irrigate.
Then we're going to show you how we get water onto our land, and you'll see a little acequia that takes off, and that was called Acequia ranchitos.
This is everything we do on the acequia is by gravity. This gate screws down and it closes all the way to the bottom of the main acequia, and then the water builds up behind it, and as soon as it gets up to about the top of these stones here, you see there's a hole over here, and right now there's a little bit of a pipe there, and that exits right over there, and then the water flows down through there. And it seals down, and the water's here. This seals it off. Just kind of like shutting off a faucet in your sink at home. They'll flow. If there's an awful lot of water, then I control that by either not putting this all the way down. I can leave a gap at the bottom. So if it's not a whole lot going over, then it's all right. And sometimes that flows across the top of this and across the top of the gate. Figure out how we're going to get up, and then we'll show you how we take the water from the river. Okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, now we're up on near the head gate of the Acequia Madre, and first we're going to walk up this little lane here about 100 yards, and we're going to look at how we divert the water out of the river. Now we've arrived, and you see this water in the river, and we're right on the edge of our diversion that turns the water from the river channel into the Acequia Madre. You can see the water's running actually into the sluice of the Acequia Madre, and if there was a higher flow of river water, then where we're standing right now would be wet, because the water would be flowing that way if we had good water.
Does it flood a lot, or?
Well, because of the reservoirs and the dams up in the canyon, all the high flows of the water are generally held into the reservoirs, so we don't get high flows of water anymore. Only during some of the summer storms, like right now we're in our monsoon season. Everything is pretty wet, as you can see, and we've been getting good rains, but we haven't had any real cloudbursts. And when we get those, sometimes it can be a terrific amount, and sometimes the last 2 years we've had to rebuild this because it gets a lot of erosion from the high flows of water. Well, this is natural grass, so this is always growing along the edge of the ditch anyhow. You see all the grass, you can see the seeds on the top of it. It grows real tall. And so it's just a good natural grass. And this is what was in New Mexico when the Spanish arrived. And I don't know if you've heard stories about them talking about when they were bringing their horse, because they came in on horses, and the grass was tall enough to reach the belly of the horses.
Wow.
So that means the grass is this tall.
It's really fertile.
And so this is just the same grasses that have been here forever. Now we're going to walk back down, and then we'll go across the bridge, and then we'll go down to the head gate. And since there's lots of water, we'll be able to divert some water into the Acequia Madre. You can see how that does and what the sluice gate does. And so that'd be our next stop. Okay, now we've gone down from the pressa, and we saw where the water is coming down the river and it's coming into the sluice that feeds water into the Acequia Madre. And here I'm standing right next to what we call the head gate. And this is the gate that we can open or shut depending on whether we want water into the Acequia. It's what we call the sluice gate. And the sluice gate is the one that controls how much water that's in the sluice goes back to the river or gets diverted into the Acequia Madre itself. Today we have some good water flow. So I think what we'll do is a couple of us will close this gate here, and then we'll watch the water rise up, and then when we think it's enough, then we'll start opening this gate, and you'll see the water start flowing through the gate. So who wants to help me with the opening the sluice gate?
Okay. There on the sluice gate.
Hang on. This one's going to turn this way.
She's strong. She can handle it.
Go, Sarah, go! Woohoo!
Okay, that's good.
Woohoo!
Now you can see that the water is rising up where it's flowing down the sluice. And the next thing we're going to do, as soon as the water gets up just a little bit more. So now what we want to do is we want to raise this gate up so we can get a good flow going into the Acequia.
That's a nice picture there.
Taking 99% of the water into the Acequia Madre. And if we were to leave it running like this, the water would get down about to my house in about, at this rate, it would be about maybe 30 minutes for it to get that far.
How come it gets deeper and then smaller over here?
Because we're stopping the water from leaving. We're making it all come this way.
Have you noticed over the 30 years or so that you've taken care of the Acequia, have you noticed less water over a period of time with climate change and it affecting the ecosystem?
Well, I'm not so sure it would be as much from climate change, although, we have variations in the monsoon because first we depend on the snowpack. And, this year started to be what we thought was going to be a really good year, and it wasn't all that great all around the state. And so that could have to do with climate change because it was a very warm winter. But then we've had, I think climate change is happening, but it may not be I think it's going to be a much, much slower change. And if you look at the weather patterns over the last 100 years where they've been keeping records, we've had warmer winters before, and we weren't really worried about climate change, though I think it's definitely something that's happening. We go ahead and open this sluice up. open up just a little bit with the pressure behind it. You see the water will make an arc. Shaking with the pressure on it.
All right, open her up.
Keep going.
Yeah, they're gonna come over. Now we're at a point where this is where we measure how much water we use in the Acequia, because we have a finite amount that's allowed by the water rights we have. And this is called a partial flume, and it works by the Venturi effect. By that float where it narrows and it drops. And what that does, when the water passes by, it stills the water at the top so it can be measured. And if it's at the 0.2 mark, then in measuring in cubic feet per second of how fast the water flows, it's only 2/3 of a cubic foot passing at that in a second. If it's up to the 1 foot mark, it's actually about 9 cubic feet per second. So that's a difference from something of around 150 gallons per second to about 2,700 gallons per second. That's a lot of water passing through. So, but this is how we measure it. I come and I look at this gauge at least twice a day. After we turn the ditch on and I let it settle, then I read it and make sure that it's at a number that I want it to be at, the level we want. And then later on in the afternoon, I come and make sure that it's still there. If it's low, then I'll maybe close the sluice gate a little bit and put more water here. If it's high, I'll open the sluice gate and make this go down so we can make an adjustment in it. And then I keep records of it, and then I share those records with the city of Santa Fe. Okay?
As the city of Santa Fe's population increases, does that have an effect on your water rights?
No.
Okay.
No. We have, actually the Acequia Madre has first right to the water of the Santa Fe River. We have an older right than the city's water right. That's the way, New Mexico water law goes. The first users have what they call senior rights, and the senior rights means that you take the water first.
Okay.
And if there's water left over to share for somebody else, then the junior water rights gives. In 1680, there was the Indian Revolt, and so the Pueblo Revolt, and so most of the records were destroyed. Although the Spanish were fantastic making copies of things and storing them in places like Mexico City or even Chihuahua or in Spain itself. So there's some records, but there wasn't any records of the Acequias. So the state engineer, when they started the study for the adjudication of our water rights, which they have to do for the whole state, they gave this ditch a priority date of time immemorial and prior to 1680. Which means they really don't know how much prior to 1680 it was, but they know Santa Fe was here in 1610. But we also have indications that the Pueblo Indians, because there was a Pueblo on the site of Santa Fe also, might have been irrigating from, could be this ditch or something similar to it prior to 1610.
Okay.
So we don't know.
So it could be as old as 600 years.
Well, it could be. Parts of it could be. It's a good possibility.